Sales has not meaningfully changed from the early days of car sales 100 fucking years ago. If you're not re-engineering sales right now, I don't think it's going to work. There's a new fundamental platform technology. I think humans will end up being amplifications of what AI does. This is a rate limiter on the fucking world.
Hey everyone, I'm Naz. I'm the founder of Next.ai, and I've got here David Boskovic, the CEO of Flatfile. And David's got some hot takes. What do you think about startups? And I'm not going to name them. I'm not going to name them on video. Startups replacing humans with AI.
Yeah. Look, I think the replacing aspect is interesting. I think there's three ways that AI can be reasonably deployed right now. Right, you can augment people. This is what we're seeing with like Cursor, Lovable, etc. Like people are using it as a tool. They're still doing the same job. They're just doing it differently, faster, better. Then you have a new batch of companies that are sort of arguing that they can anthropomorphize AI into a human role, an AI SDR, an AI engineer. I think it's like fundamentally wrong. Not because AI can't replace like a lot of what we do as people, but because it's like trying to shove a robot into a human-shaped suit, right? Like it's not. Even if it were possible, it would not be the ideal way of deploying AI because humans have different strengths, weaknesses, limitations than AI does. So overall, I think it's good branding. I think it certainly creates some hype, which may create some distribution. In the end, I think it will make it very hard for companies to adopt because you essentially set yourself up to be judged by a measure that you really don't want to be, right? Like imagine, let's go with the AI SDR, right? Now that you've said that, now that you've sold that, you're going to be measured by the measure of a human SDR. It's actually a decent way of selling it, but the moment you've bought that, now you're going to measure that against the way that we measure humans, right? Which is just entirely wrong, right? If you're actually going to apply AI, and this is how I recommend folks do it, is deconstruct the roles into parts that AI can do extremely efficiently and well, right? Maybe it's an AI researcher that's going and deep researching customers or future prospects and developing knowledge about them. It's not an AI SDR in a box, right? That you're going to immediately run into all the problems that the AI has, right? Oh, the AI can't use LinkedIn properly, or maybe it can, or maybe it can't call, or maybe it does, or maybe it calls badly, all these things. But each of these things can be sort of optimized independently. So I generally think it's short-sighted to try anthropomorphizing AI too much. I do think that the ultimate play, so I think AI will replace a lot of what we do as people.
Yeah.
I think humans will end up being amplifications of what AI does. Even the first approach that we're seeing, right? People using AI dev tools like Cursor. I think that's the first wave. I think the next wave is dev tools that do most of the work and humans that do code review, humans that underwrite the outcomes and sort of implement that in the business.
Totally agree with that because like we are building a CRM, right? And I see a lot of people coming from the perspective of like, we are going to tell you how to do sales in our CRM. I don't think that should be the CRM's job. Like the salesperson does not want to be told how to sell. They know how to read undertones of what people are saying. They know if you need to take a flight out and go talk to this person in person, or you can close this deal right now. They know this person needs to be taken to a party and they need to be warmed up a little bit. Like they can understand those things by themselves. They know strategic selling, right? Those are things that AI SDR would not be able to like easily pick up. What I think is you should take away all the unproductive, wasteful things that a salesperson has to do in their life, like updating the CRM. Like they should not be doing that in the age of AI. You should be focusing on like, all right, what's my game plan? How am I going to approach this deal? What am I going to tell this person? Do I need them to take them to dinner? What's going to be my pitch in the dinner? And that's it, right? So totally agree with that.
This one's interesting because I hear what you're saying. I tend to actually disagree with that as well, which is sales is mostly an operational role. Now you're highlighting some of the things that are intuition based, but a lot of those are actually strategic. They're relevant to the size of account, the customer, the notes from the meeting, etc. I actually think AI can be very strategic in running a sales deal. I don't think I think in the future, sales is entirely different. I think that like you don't have salespeople who are just augmented by AI taking their notes and so on and so forth. I think you just have a different role entirely. Right, so think about it. Right, deconstruct the sales job. Right, We have sales, we need to research and understand the customer's use case and account, right? We need to take notes from their meeting and plan next steps. We need to build a custom POC for that customer.
Yeah.
We need to make sure the demo reflects their vertical, their industry, their use case.
Yeah.
We need to negotiate a deal that has the appropriate ROI, right? Price it accordingly.
Yeah.
Many of those things are like the full stack sales experience. It covers a lot of ground, but AI can actually do each of those parts reasonably well if you have a fine-tuned enough agent. So you think about the ideal role of a salesperson in this new world is about 10% of what it previously is.
So I don't totally like disagree with that. Like I also think that sales reps jobs are completely going to change.
Yeah.
Right. Like with AI, then it's not just getting augmented. A lot of the parts of the sales process is going to be taken up by AI. But I think before we even go there, the first thing to solve for is helping them be productive. What I think is the salesperson is still Tony Stark, and you give them the Iron Man suit and they're going to fly and do amazing things, but eventually the robot and the suit is going to do that job, yes, but it's still going to have some human oversight. The salesperson is still going to be looking at, hey, wait, AI, I'm going to tell you, don't go that route, go that route, right? And still going to course correct things, but 90% of that is still going to be taken care of by
AI. Well, I'll give you practically how we're doing this. So we don't have traditional salespeople. We run an enterprise sales pipeline. We have 5 different people throughout the process that run a sales deal. We don't have your traditional AE at all, right? In fact, it might be very hard for us to hire a traditional AE with the way we've structured sales. We have show people. Show people just do demos, right? If you ever meet a salesperson that is incredible at doing demos, right? They have that stage presence. They know how to pause at the right moment. They have that comedy. They read the room and give people the wow moment at just the right time, right? That person is rarely the best person in negotiating a deal as well, right? Yeah. For some reason, now we box all this into a sales role and we comp people a huge percentage of the deal in order to run it end to end. But that's not how human skill allocates, right? Yeah. So we have specialists in running demos. That's all they do, back to back, all day long. They love it. Then we have what we call producers. Producers facilitate the deal end to end, and they make sure that after that first call, right, the deal notes are in, which are generated by AI, they're correct. But if there's technical implementation notes or pricing things, pricing details that were discussed, all of that's put together into essentially a call sheet for the next person taking over the deal, which depending on the type of size of deal, it's going to be something different, right? If you're going straight into product, there's actually nothing further. You essentially get a proposal and you go into like a sales assisted product track. Or you're going to enterprise deal and you need a POC, it gets handed over to a solutions engineer who's going to go and convert that into a POC. AI is going to generate 90% of that POC. Solutions engineer is there to make sure the architecture is right. So every role in the sales process is different than it used to be, right? Yeah. And everybody's comped differently as well. There isn't your usual sort of AE that owns 10%. Instead, you have a producer owning 200 simultaneous deals, and they're comped differently according to the deal. So overall, I think like if you're not re-engineering sales right now, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think your traditional AE is going to be able to leverage all the operational tools because that is a RevOps problem, right? Yeah. That is an orchestration system. So I'm generally bearish that the AE role will continue in any form that it currently is. The sales has not meaningfully changed from the early days of car sales 100 fucking years ago, right? Sales has really not been innovated on. Yeah. It's still very much can be most aptly described as hoorah, let's go, right? Like that's not a functional business, right? Yeah. Yes, some people are really fucking good at it, but imagine if, bear with me for a second while I dunk on sales, right? Imagine if you walked into a restaurant. Yeah. Imagine if we just accepted that 30% of people were going to go with food poisoning, and we just accounted for it in the quality of the food. We literally do that in sales. We're we might lose 30% of people will fuck up, make the wrong decisions. Ramp is slow. We're not able to carry quota. We're just going to fuck things up, and we just accept it. We're just that's the price of doing business. 30% of our experiences are going to be bad because we haven't built a system that allows for consistent quality. Yeah. We map it into the process. You're that is absolutely insane. And I think now AI is going to give us the ability to actually allow salespeople to be stars, truly stars, maybe back to your point, but in the place where they're fucking excellent, right? Like everybody has absolute superpowers in like one area. And I think the new sales teams will put people into those slots, and those people will actually be able to then ship great product. It'll be like a luxury buying experience. Last night I was talking to somebody about this. It's like you walk into a hotel, right? A luxury hotel. And the moment you go through those doors, there is an operation that is there to make you feel like you are the most important person in the world. You step in there, like the smell is designed by like scent designers, right? You take 5 steps forward. Someone walks up to you with a hot towel. They're like, sir, would you like a hot towel? I love that. You feel it on your face. It makes you feel like you transcended whatever the noise of the street, right? You just entered a new experience. You take 5 steps further, like, I'll take your bag, right? Like every moment is designed and it feels personal. It feels attentive, but it is an operation. There are 3 different people there, each doing a different part of this process. And we can do that in sales. We can create a luxury experience that is far better than the experiences we create today. And people buy from people, absolutely. But we now have the economic ability to create a luxury experience that was not affordable before. So I think sales becomes actually far better of an experience for buyers while also moving between different stakeholders. And AI can operationalize that and make sure it's perfect, make sure the people appear at the right time, etc.
That is amazing. That is amazing. No, I totally agree with like the sales operation has completely changed. And I think all like the AI tools that are coming these days and the AI GTM stack and everything, it's like, we're going to help your A's do this. We're going to help your BDRs do that. Yeah. But I think low key, they need to like start thinking about what are these show putters and your producers and like how sales is going to change in itself as a role, as like an operation, and where do you go with that? And absolutely in that sense, like I would love to like, I know people don't know about like the crazy internal GTM tool that you've created in-house. Like how does that support, like tell us about that GTM tool. How does that support your like internal team, and how do you like 10x your output using that?
So for everybody listening, I'll dig into a little bit of some of the tooling that we've created. But think back to this luxury like experience you're talking about, right? Think about how they execute it, right? A day before guests arrive, right? There are face sheets handed around to all the staff. When you see this person's name is so-and-so, right? They're going to be here for 7 days, right? They're coming with their family, etc. The staff, every one of the staff, right, know who you are the moment you walk in. That's training in advance, right? There's an operational step that happens, right? There's a machine behind the people that are making sure they are doing the right thing at the right time that puts on a show. Or think about like going to a concert, right? You go to a concert and you like see the fire and you see the tricks and the the person just slides across the stage, and under there, right, there's like a sled with wires, right? There's people that have planned everything to the T at the right moment. There's machines that are popping it up. And for you as the user, right, or the person in the audience, it just feels like magic. You're just watching these like, wow, right? Your adrenaline is pumping.
It's an experience.
It's an experience, but it is a production, right? It is a machine that you are part of. Same with a comedy, right? You go there for 25 minutes, right? And like someone's fucking making the most hilarious jokes, cracking the most hilarious jokes, right? And you're laughing your ass off. They have tried those jokes 70 different times, they've edited it until finally the timing, everything gets right. Right? And that's how serious we need to take our businesses, and we can now do it, right? We have the economic ability to do it. So when we think about operationalizing that at Flatfile, think about like, what does it take to actually make sure everybody's ready? So, a few minutes before a sales call, the person going to that call gets a note. Here's what you need to know. Call sheet, right? Essentially. But it's detailed, it's thoughtful. It goes into the person's background, their role, their job history, the company, what the possible use cases are for this account, etc. All generated by AI. And it's short enough that you can read it quickly, and so that you're fresh going into the call. When you go into that call, you go in, you're like, hey, Joe, really great to meet you. I saw that you just joined this company 2 months ago. Really glad to have you here. Did you know that at your last company you used Flatfile? Yeah, I totally did. All right, but that's preparation. That's a production. That's a moment. And that is part of what tools like you're building, that's the responsibility. It's operationalizing the good experience. It's not just giving AEs tools to do their job. It's operationalizing the quality. So for us, right, like we built this internal tool that starts even a lot further ahead
of the first sales conversation. We deep research markets, right? 30-page report on a market, understand the use cases of our product in a market. With cannabis software, we understand that there's a weird compliance thing that like every night, every cannabis store has to submit to their state, right? It's like this weird CSV file with 5 different formats. It's a huge frustration for us. Like that's a great thing for us that we solve. But like imagine going into content that you're producing, going into ads that you're seeing, and you see that thing that makes you feel seen, that makes you feel known as this particular buyer. Like it's only true if you are in that industry. And it makes you feel like, hey, this company gets me. And we do. We actually get you. We're not just pretending we get you. We have operationalized getting you out at the front door, right? Months before you ever talk to us, it starts feeling like we know you. And by the time you get to that door, we're going to show you a customized demo to the cannabis industry, right? We're not going to show you a generic demo. We're going to show you something that makes sense for you. And that is also operationalized, right? That's not just AE rep number 1 is really good at, prepping for calls. It's no, here's the fucking demo. Here's the script. Here's the moment where you show this feature and that feature. And all of that can be operationalized. The thing about the power that AI brings to this is bringing the qualitative layer much closer to the quantitative layer, right? Yeah. Being able to operationalize things that outside of AI, right? The cost, maybe an extremely high level sales, like you're selling jets or whatever, you would do this, right? Where there's enough money to pull off a production like this. But if I was doing this without AI, it would cost me more money than I have in the bank.
Yeah.
Right. But now you can do this. Okay. One more point on this, right? Yeah. There's this common trope that AI is going to make everything drivel, right? It's going to turn like everything you see into bullshit. And yes, if you apply AI that way, you can. But what it can actually do is the opposite. Because now the cost of being right is very low. Yes. The cost of being accurate and targeted is very low. So it's more likely, once all the dust settles, that you're going to get extremely thoughtful, extremely well-written, and accurately targeted emails that you want to read, rather than just a pile of AI-generated bullshit, right? And so like we can apply AI such that at the end of all of this, everybody gets a luxury experience that is truly personalized and truly unique. I think that is a much better future of AI than most people give us credit for.
Yeah, no, totally agree. That's amazing points over there. And while you're talking about AI turning everything to bullshit,
What? Wait, was that the point that I?
I was on LinkedIn and I've seen like 3 or 4 posts of people where they just go to ChatGPT 4.0 and they would ask ChatGPT 4.0 to take their image and turn that into an identical image like 70 times, and it just produces like a completely different person.
Yeah.
And they're like, and this is all fear mongering. Like, look at what happens when you train AI with AI. And I'm like, dude, first of all, if you need to do that, you use a LoRa model, use the right tool, right? You're just doing fear mongering. And so like the thing that I wanted to ask you, like, what's your hot take on all these AI influencers on LinkedIn who are becoming top voices on LinkedIn now?
That's interesting. I don't have a hot take here. I think it is. We are early days in technology, so I view a lot of these things as like experiments to see what sticks. My instinct is what sticks is going to be like an AI influencer that provides real value.
Yeah.
What won't stick is going to be just drivel, right?
Yeah.
And back to this point that AI can increase the quality of our experience. That may be something that we value, right?
Yeah.
Like, frankly, influencer content is not known for being very deep, right? But imagine, though, maybe with AI, we actually get to the place where we consume influencer content that is more deep, is more interesting, is more instructive. I think there's a world where it's possible that we see a higher quality from influencers. But if it's just drivel, I think it'll fade away. Like it's free market, right? Like eventually people figure out what they want and don't want, and everything.
But I think what is also happening is that as humans, we love all this fear mongering stuff and like saying like, oh, AI is gonna do this and do that, and like a lot of AI influencer content is like AI is gonna take away your jobs, or like look at Gemini 2.5, it has just changed the world, and you're like, dude, like this is too much, and like it feels very cringe. But these people are like getting the likes, they become LinkedIn top voice.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I don't know if this is going to be sustainable and we're actually going to see through the bullshit, or we're just going to go through that whole motion the whole time for like the next decade.
Well, I think history repeats itself, right? Like fear has always been a good seller.
Yeah.
I think it also motivates people to think. At the end of the day, what they think though is, we'll see. I think we just got to let this all shake out, right?
Yeah.
AI will take your job, but it also will give you a new job, right?
Yeah.
Your old job will not be your new job, right? It's like this one simple truth that I think everybody should, that I fully embrace,
Yeah.
right? Which is you cannot increase the economic output of an individual and then in the same breath say that they're likely to be unemployable.
Yeah.
Right. So like, well, in the moment, right? Like to make one engineer worth 10 engineers or
Yeah.
one marketer worth 10 marketers, right? Then you sort of upset the supply and demand, right, of resources. But what you also do, right, is make each person more economically valuable. So once the dust settles and the new market emerges, individuals have greater economic output. This is not the first time in the world that we've seen this happen. Used to be that in order to feed the world, you actually needed the rough calorie output of every single fucking able-bodied man in the fields to produce food, or people starve. Right? The calorie input and output required you to put almost all of your energy into growing food.
Yeah.
And then, after every industrial revolution, after every era of innovation, you're like, oh, now we only need 30% of that energy. Now we only need 10% of that energy. And it released people to go and do other things that created a new economic era. And we will see that shake out. Now, yes, there'll be some discomfort for a period of time, but you cannot say that you will increase the economic value of an individual and that then they will not be valuable. That's just not actually how economics works. It would require a zero-sum game. And that's not true of the world. So I'm generally extremely bullish that, like, yes, AI will take everybody's job because the jobs you have will no longer exist in their current form. The job descriptions, the things you were trained for, everything that you currently understand as your job will just be different in the future.
So let's talk about, we're talking about economic value of an individual, right?
Yeah.
And I know you have thoughts about this. What do you think about product managers now being able to wipe code products by themselves and not needing engineers?
Yeah, look, we don't have product managers at Flatfile.
I'm a PM.
I am generally deeply antagonistic to the historical PM role, because historically PMs have optimized towards managing to the median common denominator, and taking decision making away from engineers who are building, kind of abstracting away problems in the business, just overall creating a system that produces output, right? I had a talk yesterday where I was talking about most of the way we built companies is turning people into machines, right? PMs are part of that machine. I am a PM, I have this area of the product I own, I have these engineers, I give them tickets to do, they go fucking punch those tickets, they ship code, hopefully, if they're good PMs, they go and ship code, hopefully. And PMs are there to sort of like abstract away some of the risks of the business, right?
Yeah.
So overall, I think a better environment is when engineers or builders own the decisions themselves and have direct contact with the responsibility with the company. I think it can scale pretty significantly. There's companies that have done it, and I intend to do it. Now, back to your question, I actually see PMs operating as exactly the right kind of behavior, right? Instead of just managing the output of other people, you are now building. We have a rule at Flatfile: everybody builds. Engineer or not, everybody builds. Our designer, they build, right? Our CSMs, they build, right? Because you don't need to be an engineer to build anymore. So yes, I think PMs should build, and that now moves PMs out of the world of just overseeing things, taking a product, like here's the tickets I need to get it done, and instead get hands-on and build it. Now that is an exciting world. But it's exciting for the same reason I hated PMs before. I think PMs that are building are actually now able to operate very effectively as individual contributors and are able to build the products that they imagine, right? They're able to hold responsibility for the entire output. And that's why we see PMs now growing and starting entire companies. And I fucking love it.
Yeah, that's true. And I was actually talking about it with my co-founders then. And we were talking about, okay, we got to hire more people, engineers. We were like, we need product engineers, right? Like, we need people who understand
Yeah.
product, who understand what we need to build.
Yeah.
Like, you know what the strategy is, you know where we're going as a GTM motion, and you can absorb all of that, and then you can be like,
Yeah.
all right, I've got cursor in front of me, I know how to write code, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna build stuff
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think like the language of engineering
Yeah.
is converging, right?
Yeah.
PMs, right, speak English and build systems in English. Engineers, right, are like engineers can become more product oriented. Product people can become more engineering oriented.
Yeah.
I think all of this is going to converge. People who think about product, think about innovation, are idea people, have taste, have good judgment, right? Those people will be able to operate extremely effectively.
Yeah.
Whether that's a PM or an engineer, it doesn't matter. So this product engineer concept, or this combination of the two, I think is really important. But the way you refer to PM, I think, is something that should not be universally understood,
Yeah.
right? Many PMs, especially at larger companies, are not innovators. They're not idea people. They are project managers more than they are product managers,
Yeah.
right? They are downstream from innovation. And so I think in general, I would put aside the titles and say, if you are someone who cares about innovating product, you're full of ideas, you think something can happen, you believe you understand the value of it, and you believe you understand why it should happen, why it's important, then the opportunity that now is available to you is the ability to go and act on your thoughts.
Yes.
And that ability, right, what makes product engineers so valuable, what makes PMs coding so valuable, is that the time from idea to outcome is nearly zero, right? It's literally, you can just go do it. And that's fucking incredible, right? That like everything is iteration time in the world, and now iteration time is getting down to near zero. That's where you see impressive products emerge in weeks and months. Yeah.
Wow. Another thing that I wanted to ask you, like we were talking about building with AI, a lot of the AI apps that we see today, and the problem, like there's a lot of meme around there, right? It's like you're just a ChatGPT wrapper, you're just an OpenAI wrapper, and like I don't agree with that approach. But what do you think of like investors coming in and other people coming in and say, oh, you're just a ChatGPT wrapper, what's your innovation? Like how do you respond to that?
Well, I would respond that every software company for the last 15 years has been an AWS wrapper.
True.
I mean, like there's a new fundamental platform technology, right?
Yeah.
Like large language models are a platform of some sort, right? They're a new technology, but the way it's applied, way it's deployed, is entirely up to the product builders, and this is why you see now a lot of the frontier model companies, right, are starting to think about product, right? We saw ChatGPT just buy Windsurf. You're like, there we go, right? Like how you deploy AI, like the modality is very important, right? What's really interesting about ChatGPT specifically is that LLMs have existed for a long time, right? But the chat ergonomics, right, created an interface to the technology that opened up a product experience that allowed all of this to accelerate very quickly. And so that's just ergonomic set number one, right? It feels like interacting with a human, right? Like rather than a machine. And so now we've seen a lot break out around that. I think,
in fact, if I interject, when OpenAI came up with GPT-3, which people don't even remember, I had access to the OpenAI beta, and I go in, I was in the playground, and I started like playing around with it, and I was like, this is sick, like the amount of stuff you can do, and I sent it to my friends, like, what the heck is this? And like they were not really interested. Only when ChatGPT was dropped as an application, people were like, holy shit. And like, I've been talking about this stuff with you guys, like sharing my playground stuff, but you're not like listening to me. And suddenly ChatGPT is like this huge phenomenon.
The ergonomics of chat is the product layer, right? It is a product layer. I think that is just the first, right? So I think product companies are going to keep developing new ergonomics around LLMs. For us, right, we make a lot of changes to large data sets, tables, right? Chat isn't actually the ideal interaction for that, especially when AI is making changes to sensitive data. So we have a completely different paradigm, right? We have tables and diff views and acceptance flows and so on and so forth that aren't chat. It's a new set of ergonomics, right? So I think there's a lot to be explored, right? We just found the first one. Product companies are going to keep building and innovating around the way you interact with this underlying fundamental. But I would view LLMs very much in the category of
database technology, right? It's
Yeah.
a fundamental. It is
Yeah.
not the product layer itself.
Yeah, no, that's true. And like when talking about like even the ergonomics of this, like a lot of people also over-index on the chat ergonomics and just using a chat UI for like literally everything that's LLM. Because for example, I set up the HubSpot MCP server on Cursor and I was playing around with it, and I started like, okay, move my deal from this thing to this thing, and it does a great job at that. But at a few points, I'm like, first of all, I don't even know which deals I need to move. I can't see the context of like what we were talking about. If this is a good fit, should I send it to like a qualified flow, not a qualified flow? So I'm like, I have to go back and forth actually to the UI to actually see what's happening. And so what we need is kind of like a merger of like where you can chat with the LLM, but you're not just chatting. You also want to give it command based on what you see on the UI, right? Like, and so it's kind of something that we built on Next was we have an AI generated UI, what we call IntelliView. And IntelliView is nothing but it's just we have a bunch of cards that we know that you want to see. Like you want to see a call summary, meeting prep, account research, all of that stuff. But you don't want to see everything at the same time, right? And so we just give the UI all those cards and say, decide when to show those cards to the user. And I think that's also one modality which is coming. And I think we
generative
need a mix,
UI.
Generative UI. And we need a mix of like a generative UI where you can see and understand the context that you need at that point, and then be able to go hit chat and say, all right, this is what I need right now. And so you generate that new thing, and that's also now in the UI, and you use that context to connect something else. And you're like, you basically connecting a bunch of dots on that UI, and that it gets built in front of you. Like I think that's the new modality.
What is insane to actually realize is just how early we are in the like new cycle of innovation. Right, we're in the material science era still of AI. Right, like you think about think about steel. Right, it took literally hundreds of years to find the ways to create and apply steel in the right way, and then you apply it. But what we're seeing is a really interesting thing that we've never seen before. Right, we're both in the material science era, right, figuring out what the right ergonomics are, what the right ways of applying this technology is, and we are also in the like market era. Like we are like straight, like we have commercialized it, right? Like straight, like while we're still figuring out what the right ergonomics are. It's wild. We've never seen these two things juxtaposed like this in any era, right? Like even silicon, right? Like it took so long before we finally were able to begin broadly commercializing it. It is very interesting, and I think a lot of the things that we start building, right, chat-based things, are likely to evolve into more fine-tuned, more just better ergonomics for the user. But it is interesting. It's a new technology that like we're like meaningfully a year in to like deploying, right? Like
that's true. And and this is such a challenge for a designer as well, because we're literally at a moment where you're thinking about the material design of AI, and he's trying to figure out, okay, what's going to be the UI for this new thing? And it's like, it's hard. It's just not going to be easy.
Not a lot of paradigms.
And so designers really have like a hard challenge in front of them. You can't just use like your old concepts that you have been using before and like apply it here. It's like things have completely changed. And my last question, and this is like a personal question to me, right? Which is that I talk to investors, I talk to a bunch of people, because we've started building this company, we raised a bit of funds, and they're like, you have to go and build an SF. You have to live in SF to be able to build this company. And at the same time, I'm also seeing like I'm from Germany, and I see companies like Lovable building out of Europe. I see companies like Fixer AI building out of London. And I'm wondering, like, of course, Europe is a hard place to build out of. Like, I of course understand the ecosystem in SF. But I'm still not able to understand or buy the concept that you have to like literally live in this city to be able to build a generation-defining CRM company. But I don't know. Like, what's your thought?
So it's categorically not true that you have to live in SF to build $1 billion company, because it's been done, right? So let's start with that's not true. However, I think what people are right about, and it is an economics point, right? The cost of doing things here in terms of time is much lower, because the availability of people who you can network with, who you can learn from, employ, ideate with, etc., is very dense, right? So if you're living somewhere else, you have to make that for yourself, or you have to find ways to do it in less effective environments, right? A Zoom call is not going to result in the same, especially with ideation, especially early stage, not going to result with the same outputs, right? There's different types of people that work well in different environments. So it'll just cost more not to do it here, right? The cost of rent here is going to be far lower than the cost of you're finding access to the right people. You know, we met at dinner last night, and like that kind of thing, right, just doesn't happen elsewhere. Right. So I think like if you're an investor and you're saying this, you're probably saying, hey, the economics of doing it here, right, in terms of the time it's going to take you to like probably come out with the right product market fit, the right ideas, but it's going to be lower because there's more serendipity. There's more opportunity to get your idea tested here in real life than there is elsewhere. I think that is just unavoidably true, right? Just higher density of talent, higher density of ideas in a single space is just going to lead to like a higher likelihood of success. So I think it is both more like it is both true that it is that you can build $1 billion company anywhere in the world. And it is also true that it is more likely that you will do it here because it is at least some amount more efficient that you can do it here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if there's anywhere in the world that's more efficient.
No, that's true, and I've been seeing that like the kind of people that I just run into randomly and the kind of conversations that I'm able to like personally hit is just like crazy, right? Dude, this was amazing. I love your hot takes. There's so much to like dwell upon. Like you gave me so much to think about as well, and of course like a lot of people who are gonna watching. I want to know what's up with Flatfile. Like, where is it going? What are you doing with it? Like, it looks like you're doing crazy stuff with it. I'd love to know what's the future of Flatfile right now.
Yeah. Look, Flatfile is AI for data preparation. It's AI for a really boring problem in general, right? But the problem itself is so pervasive.
I love this boring problem, by the way.
it's pervasive, right? And it's pervasive in a way that really doesn't. It sneaks up on you, and I'll give you an example that really like punches this home. I was talking to this like I would say like not like medical tech company, right? And they basically use AI on top of like MRI data, CAT scans, etc. They analyze that, associate it with like metadata about the patient's history, so on and so forth, and then combine that data, and their technology can like predict or detect cancer 4 to 5 years before a doctor is even capable of doing it. And so you're in this moment. You're like, oh my god, oh this is amazing. This is what the future looks like. This is where technology is going.
It's crazy,
And then I'm like, wait. Why are we talking? They're like, well, our AI like takes a few hours to run, but it takes us almost a year to organize the metadata before we can even run the AI. And if that doesn't make you think, you're like, this is a rate limiter on the fucking world.
It's the biggest bottleneck,
right? In areas of like software innovation where data is the provider of the insider information, right? We have this massive rate limiter that's just like, oh, we have to wait a year to do this thing, and that in my mind is unacceptable, right? Like that is insane, and it's holding the world back. So if I think about like where Flatfile goes, right? Flatfile removes that problem, right? It removes it accelerates the pace of innovation, right? Instead of a year, now it's a week, right? And hopefully it gets down to 0. And I think this is, where AI applied to our problem is insanely valuable, right? You get agents to go through this grinding work. They can get down to a level of accuracy and detail that frankly, we just don't have the time for people to do, right? And that opens up a new world of innovation. I think it accelerates innovation, which obviously continues benefiting us because more data continues moving around. But our world is to make data moving from point A to point B completely effortless. And I think what you can expect to see from us is just continuing to build product that allows that, right? Reducing the time from weeks to days to minutes to seconds. And I think eventually when we remove this problem, it'll be as fundamental to the economics of software as as Moore's law, right? It's a rate limiter.
That's amazing. That's amazing. No, I'm totally excited to see what you guys build because this is the problem even in the CRM space, right?
Everywhere.
Like literally everyone I'm like, hey, try out our new CRM. This is going to be the best thing, and like this is super fast, and this is the experience you will never have. And they see the demo, and they're like, this is good, and just like you said, like we cannot leave our CRM right now. Like, how do we do the migration? Like, I'm talking to someone who's like, oh, we are on Salesforce. This is going to take us 6 months.
And $200,000.
$200,000 to make that migration. this is a big problem. And
Yeah.
if you can just solve that,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you take that, like, I don't want to call CRMs a trailer, but if there was it was like a trailer truck and you could take it from like one place to
Yeah.
like park it in another
Yeah.
place, that would be amazing. Like
Yeah.
take the whole CRM, shift it to a new CRM, and you don't even have to think about it. That is like
Yeah.
the ultimate future. And
Yeah.
CRMs will stop being shitty because they know that this high switching cost
Yeah.
that they keep talking about is gone, and now they really need to
Yeah.
innovate.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
this is amazing. David, this has
Yeah.
been amazing, man. Loved your hot takes. We should do something like this again and again. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Anytime, man.
dude.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing for this.
All right.
Yep. All right, cut.